Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. The only game between 3-0 teams kick off on Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern. It is the Eagles traveling to Tampa to take on the Bucs. Two quarterbacks who have gotten it done in different ways. Jalen Hurts being told, throw the ball more, get it to AJ, get it to Devontae. Regardless, they're rocking a 19-1 record over their last 20, so something is working. Baker Mayfield, in the meantime, using every bit of the clock to get his team wins this year. He's the second quarterback in NFL history to lead fourth-quarter comebacks in each of the first 3 games of the season. The other was a guy that we know very well named Matt Ryan back in 2015. So here's more from Baker Mayfield on the upcoming matchup against the reigning Super Bowl champs.
Starting fast, executing is cliche as it is, doing all the little things right. You know, it's a team that lines up and they do what they do, and they do it really well. So we have to do the same thing, match that energy. And I mean, it's between their O-line and their D-line. Obviously, this game's going to be won in the trenches, and that's the way we like it. We trust our big boys, we trust our D-line, and it's a great matchup for those guys as well.
Excited to welcome back our John Breech and Mike Renner as we get set for 2 unbeaten teams come Sunday, guys. So let's see what's in store for these two. And we start right there. Both of these teams undefeated, but they've gotten there in different ways. Mike, what can you say about the journey and the way these two teams have maintained that spotless record to this point?
Yeah, I think these are 2 of the best teams in the NFC. And I think you've seen that in that they have a number of different ways to win games. With the Eagles, it's like they can win with their defense. They can win with Jalen Hurts scrambling. And then last week against the Rams, they can win with Jalen Hurts throwing the football if they decide to do that, right? And with the Bucs, it's just Baker Mayfield. You're just seeing the ascendance of him. 3 straight games, 3 straight game-winning drives. A guy who can put the team on his back because they've been so banged up. You know, the offensive line is decimated. They didn't have any wide receivers that final drive there against the Jets, and he still gets it done. So you're seeing a guy just put a franchise on his back and really become a Tampa Bay Bucs legend here.
Yeah, well, you see the Buccaneers, and they've been a heart attack waiting to happen. Poor Bucs fans out there. If NFL games were only 59 minutes long, the Bucs would be 0-3 right now because they've won all 3 of their games in that final minute, and they have all been absolutely dramatic. But as Mike alluded to, Baker Mayfield has been the man. He has come up absolutely clutch for this team, and that is why they are 3-0. And the Eagles have done it in all different ways. When Saquon Barkley's been stuffed and stopped all 3 weeks, really, this year, and so they've had to find new ways to win, whether it's blocking 2 field goals in the fourth quarter against the Rams, getting their passing game going, letting their defense do it. The Eagles find a new way to win every week. So now we get these 2 teams facing off against each other. And I think one interesting thing is that the Buccaneers have been dominating the Eagles. They've won 4 of the past 5 against them.
I will add, when it comes to Baker Mayfield as well, since he joined the Buccaneers a few years ago, he leads the NFL in passing touchdowns with 75. I believe he is second as well in total passing yards, too. So he's done a lot of good stuff for this Bucs team. I think for both of these units, though, guys, they're going to be impacted by some injuries. So I want to talk about Tampa first because we saw Mike Evans pick up a hamstring injury, something they're kind of used to at this point. He's had a hamstring injury every year since 2019. But Baker listed as questionable as well, a couple of other guys there too. John, when you think about this offense and how much it hinges on Baker Mayfield, how do those injuries impact him, especially in a game against a Philadelphia defense?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting matchup because of all the injuries. You're not going to have Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield should be out there, but anytime your quarterback's dealing with any injury to his throwing arm, which is what Mayfield's dealing with, it's a little bit of a concern because if he takes a big hit or an awkward hit, maybe he gets knocked out of the game. So obviously the Buccaneers are going to be watching that. And their offensive line, they've kind of been shuffling the offensive line a lot, which is another concern when you have a quarterback who is a little bit beat up. Now, the good news is that some of these injuries are guys coming back. Chris Godwin could be playing on Sunday for the first time this season. Tristan Wirfs could be out there for the first time this season. And those are 2 key players you absolutely want to have on the field when you're facing a team like the Eagles. So, yes, this has been difficult for the Buccaneers to deal with, all of these injuries. But so far, they've been able to navigate things, and that's why they've made it to 3-0.
Yeah, I think the Bucs knew that their wide receiving core was going to be banged up this year. You know, they came in with one of the oldest 1-2 punches in the NFL, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That's why they draft Emeka Egbuka, and that's why they have so much depth at that position. So I'm not necessarily worried about that, but it does make it harder to expose that cornerback two for the Eagles, which themselves is banged up and is probably the weakest link on this defense. But you hit the nail on the head there, Breech. It's this offensive line that is the bigger issue to me, is that you cannot be throwing out multiple backups against the Philadelphia Eagles. You can't even really be throwing out starters for most teams against this Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. They're that good. So that's where I'm worried the most about this Bucs offense this week.
Got to have a strong, healthy offensive line, but certainly Tristan Wirfs helps out with that if you're Baker Mayfield. Injuries aside, though, we talked about the bright spot at quarterback there, but in terms of a player to watch, an impact player for this game, both of you guys are targeting the run game in this one. So, Renner, tell us a little bit more about why Bucky Irving will be an impact player and how he can help my fantasy team pick up a win this week.
Yeah, I mean, he's been very slow to start this season. 3.1 yards per carry. They're obviously featuring him a bunch in the passing game, but even then, it's been a ton of short gains, not a lot of explosive plays in that passing game to Bucky Irving. But this is a game you got to lean on him. If it really is only Emeka Egbuka in the receiving corps, if Chris Godwin's not quite ready to come back, they're going to need to feature him as a receiver because he's that good at it. And they're going to need to get something going on the ground. It can't just be Baker Mayfield saving this team the last minute of every single game. They need to get the run game going early on. And so Bucky Irving, behind this offensive line, he's a guy who needs to have a big day.
Yeah, Mike and I copied each other's homework this week because Bucky Irving is also my guy. This is the guy that has to be a huge impact player if the Buccaneers are going to win. Because when you look at the injury situation that we just talked about, when your receiving group is banged up, when your quarterback is banged up, one way to work around that is to get your rushing attack going. And that's where Bucky Irving comes in. As Renner said, he struggled a little bit this season with that 3.1 yards per carry. You want to get that number up. You want to do whatever you can. Just keep feeding him the ball. But he's also been kind of a weapon in the passing game. Not a bunch of huge plays, but he's been kind of Baker Mayfield's security blanket. He's got 14 catches this year, which is tied for the most on the team. And Baker Mayfield's going to want to have a guy like that out there because that Eagles pass rush will get to you fast. And so if you need to dump it off, you dump it off to Bucky Irving and trust that he can make a big play. So they are absolutely going to need a big game from Bucky Irving if they're going to beat the Eagles.
Bucky is averaging 3.8 yards per touch this season. And for context, last year that was 6 yards per touch. So some work to do, but plenty of time to do it. I want to go back to the reigning champs for a minute here, guys, dealing with some adversity of their own. In addition to the weather change, they traveled a little bit early to adjust to those steamy Tampa temperatures. They're also going to be without their edge rusher in Nolan Smith. He was placed on IR after re-aggravating a left triceps injury. Breech, how much will that impact the defensive unit for Philly?
Well, I think when you look at the Eagles, they have a very strong pass rush. This team has depth. Howie Roseman knows how to build a roster. Jalen Carter's still out there as long as he doesn't get ejected before the first snap. So they have a lot of studs on that side. And as we mentioned, the Buccaneers offensive line has kind of been a little bit in disarray this season. So they are susceptible to a good pass rush, which is what Philadelphia has. So obviously it is going to hurt a little bit, but I do not think we'll see the Eagles pass rush take a huge step back in Tampa unless, like you just mentioned, they melt down in that 90-degree weather.
I will add that it is a balmy 80 degrees in Philadelphia with lows in the 60s, and in Tampa it is going to be 89 in Tampa with lows in the 70s. So some drastic changes there for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see if they can manage. Let's get back on track here, though, Renner. I mentioned it kind of in the lead-in here. Everyone's been complaining on social media about the lack of passing production from the Eagles. They want the wide receivers to get the ball for whatever reason, whether it's fantasy or just fandom in general. I want to talk about A.J. Brown here. He's coming off his best performance of the season, 109 yards and a touchdown in that win over the Rams. Both of you guys here are aligned that he will be the difference maker. But, Mike, why do you give him that vote of confidence?
Well, two big reasons. One is because he was already the difference maker last week. You know, you faced one of the top teams in the NFC, and you saw it as soon as they started just spamming the A.J. Brown button. And it's like you got to just throw it to him because his best plays are not when he's open. His best plays are when he's actually contested and he shrugs the defender off and then it goes for a big play after that. So that's why it's like you got to just go to him because usually good things happen when you do. And the second reason is They didn't have them the last 2 times they played. The Buccaneers dominated the Eagles last year in the regular season, dominated them the year before in the playoffs, multi-score wins in both of those, but the Eagles didn't have A.J. Brown in either. So I think he's the difference maker in this. He's the guy that changes the calculus for that secondary for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you got to just give him the rock.
Got to give it out to him. Give him a chance to be an impact player there. I know a lot of fantasy managers are asking that question. Let's get to a game prediction from you guys. When we look at the specs here, the Eagles are favored at -3.5. That point total is set at 44.5. I will mention that Tampa Bay is 4-1 against Jalen Hurts, Breech. So tell us your pick here. Who's winning?
Yeah, I think that is a big stat there. Nick Sirianni is one of the best coaches in the NFL, but Todd Bowles always seems to have his number. One thing Bowles loves to do against the Eagles is blitz. He doesn't give Jalen Hurts any time to throw the ball, doesn't give him time to think, just boom, you get in there. And that's one reason why the Buccaneers have been so successful. And as you mentioned earlier, Haley, the Eagles are flying down a day early because of the weather. I think the high is supposed to be 89, 90 degrees. The game kicks off at 1 p.m. It is going to be hot. And so if they're flying down a day early, they're already
8 deep in terms of guys that can win one-on-ones, especially when it's against backups.
I will add that Baker Mayfield did also agree with you, John. He said it was a little bit of a waste of time on Mark Sanchez's podcast. He says, I don't think it necessarily helps them. One day does not get you acclimated to this humidity. I can attest to that as someone who lives in South Florida. So we will leave it there. Excited to see that one and see who wins it, guys. Appreciate the time as the NFL continues into Week 4. Taking a look at the odds to win the NFC, no surprise, it is the Eagles still holding on to the shortest odds at +340. I have a feeling, Jacqueline, that 390, though, for the Packers is going to skyrocket once they take on my Cowboys in Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm prayers up for Dak.
Prayers up.
I'm really rooting for him in that, you know. All right, we got to talk college football because we got number 15 Tennessee taking on Mississippi State. A great offense, a great defense. It all comes to a head. So what gives? We're breaking it down coming up.